This is Beyond the Resume, the podcast that brings you the stories, advice, and insights behind some of the most successful people in real estate. Beyond the Resume is brought to you by Jackson Lucas Executive Search, the industry leader in human capital solutions. Here is Chris Papa and Lisa Flicker.
Well, Shaun, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on. Nice to see you.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you taking the time on Valentine's Day. I hope your significant others, are welcoming of this time.
Mine doesn't really like Valentine's Day, so it works out great.
Oh, that's wonderful. I like Valentine's Day a lot, so that's really hard for my husband. As you can see by the red.
You're wearing red, yeah.
Just a good reminder. It better be fun and good. I'm looking at your background, and I look and see that you've been with Marcus and Millichap for 17 years. You don't see people staying in one place for that long anymore.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's partly, it's in my Riney blood. My dad is the CEO of a 60,000 employee company and started as a security guard in that company. So he's been with that company, for, Henry Ford Health System for, 35, 40 years, whatever it's been, but moved all the way up the chain. So I think even from a branding standpoint and a, client standpoint, also, you see a lot of people jump around a lot. And I think that there's some stability that comes with somebody being in one place for 17 or 18 years. They know where to find you. At Marcus and Millichap, our color is blue. They know what you do. So, if I'm going to make a move, it needs to be a transformative move. And I think partly, I get a lot of trust in the marketplace from people because they know I'm not just jumping around, chasing the next hottest thing. Like there's some stability in stability, I guess, is the
right
way to
And you've
put it.
obviously been successful at brokerage. I mean, a lot of people go into it and aren't. If you stayed in it that long, that means you're doing good, right? So, like, what have you, like, I guess kind of like when you got out of school, your father was in healthcare. Like, did you have any, when you're growing up, did you have any interest in real estate? Like, did you even know what it was, or?
So I got my lick of the real estate in college at Boston University. I rented my first off-campus apartment as a sophomore, and the broker showed us three basically, shithole apartments, for lack of a better expression. And we had to decide on which one of those three to pick, and we had to pay a 1 month broker fee, which was $3,200. And I was like, that seems like a really quick amount of money to make for what you just did. And you basically told be homeless if I don't rent one of these three apartments, which was true. And in Boston, if you're a parent out there, September 1st, everyone has to get an apartment. So you're literally like shooting fish in a barrel. Like that's how easy it is to rent these apartments. And so I basically started doing that the week after. And I also started a fraternity while I was at Boston University. So basically the fraternity kids were all a annuity for me on the apartments because I was like, you have to rent an apartment for me, basically. And I was really good at that job. I knew every apartment in Boston. I was a hard closer. I don't think anybody ever got in my car twice. I said, are all the people there? Do all the co-signers know? And do you have your checkbook on you? And, I was like, I'll show you the best three apartments. I'm not going to show you 15 and waste my own time. And you're going to pick one of those three. Got it? And so I was really good at that. And I was making, six figures plus in senior year at college. And then it was just a question of, you can only make so much as a rental broker without, you can only run around so much. And it was really just a transition to let's sell something that is a lot longer of a duration of a sales cycle, but obviously the ceiling is a lot higher. Although I still do miss the days of going out on a weekend and being able to make money. A lot of my deals take a year and a half to progress. And that's just a long sales cycle, which is also part of the reason why there's such a high barrier to entry and turnover rate in commercial real estate brokerage. To start out in New York City with no income, I've always, part of the biggest challenge is just having a business plan that's designed to succeed is one that works in the worst case scenario. And so I was always told accurately that this was always going to be like a year one, year two, year one, you're going to lose money. There's no way you're going to make any real money. Year two, maybe you claw back at your debt from the previous year. And year three and year four are going to be your profit years. So I went into that with the right expectation and the right financial kind of background, the right loan structure to survive in New York City for 24 months. But a lot of people just come and think that they're going to be the exception to the rule, and they run out of money at month 14 or 15. And as soon as you start going down that path of maybe this is going to work out, maybe it will, maybe it won't, you're already dead. You have to, you have the staying power to do it as long as it takes. So part of what was successful, what my mantra that I always would tell myself that really worked out was I would be successful at this no matter how long it takes. And that no matter how long it takes part gave me the freedom and the peace of mind to just say, I'm never going to quit at this, so I can never fail at what I don't quit at. And it was just, it all kind of worked out from there. But there was, you go through this period of time around month 18, and I always call it the danger zone, because it's that period of time where you're starting to know what you're doing, but like there's also a bunch of tests where you think you're going to convert something and then it falls apart, and almost everybody gives up at that moment. It's just like a matter of, do you have the mental toughness to push through? Because then, things start clicking, you're in. But if I had any advice to commercial real estate brokers out there, it's like, have your finances in order to make it the third year, not 18 months, because you can't predict what's going to happen. And as soon as the clients start hearing desperation in your voice, they'll take advantage of that also.
And I imagine that watching your father was probably a huge inspiration to you, because you realized that you stuck with it. I always think of like the hockey stick, like you're going to kind of just keep going, and at some point it's going to go up, but you have to have that faith. And do you think watching your dad kind of helped you to have that faith?
Yeah, I think in a different way, my dad motivated me in those early years, because there was nothing I wanted more than to pay him back. So my deal was $3,000 a month, which is $1,500 a month in rent, and then another $1,500 for living expenses, which breaks down divided by 30 days to $50 a day. So I was eating $5 Subway footlongs pretty much every day for food, but there was no bigger motivation than not letting him down, and I wanted to pay that debt back. I wanted to get back to break even as quickly as possible. And so that was another just takeaway is, what's free is not valued. And sometimes having debt from a significant person that you look up to could be the biggest motivating force, because if I was doing it with my own money, maybe I would have failed. But I was like, there's no way, after all that I've been given, that I'm not going to pay this back. And then once I hit year 3 and I was basically at ground zero, I never looked back, and, the rest has been history. But that was probably the bigger driving force than any type of other thing. I needed to get back to zero. I'd never be able to live it down if I owed money.
Less than zero. What makes a successful, what is, obviously determination, good financial plan, but beyond that, what other skill sets did you have and or picked up along the way?
There's a lot. We go to, I work at Marcus Millichap, and we do a annual awards trip every year in Mexico. And you go there, and there's usually like 200 to 300 top qualifiers, all paid expenses, 4 seasons with a significant other. And you go there and you're like, wow, there are so many different ways to do the brokerage business. These people are all completely different types of people, different types of cowboys and cowgirls. I think there's some common threads. In my particular case, I think having a insatiable curiosity for the clients and the business plan is number one, because essentially, you don't need to know anything when you start in this line of work, but you need to know how to ask questions, and you need to know and have the drive to figure out how to answer what you didn't know and kind of pretend it through in the meetings. So my first few years, and still to this day, we're all just getting by in a meeting situation. But if what I did do was I would write down on a yellow piece of paper like I have now, everything that came up in that meeting that I kind of pretended my way through, but I would make a point to sit in Starbucks on 54th and 7th that weekend and study every nook and cranny of what the terminology that was used in that meeting, came in that process of constantly learning what I didn't know, but that had come up the week before was a big one. And that still continues today. I want to know what I don't understand completely. And then secondly, just, teaming up with the right professors in the industry, which are the buyers. So I very quickly identify that I don't the way to learn the business was to actually develop relationships with the top 5 to 10 buyers, and they became my professors. And a lot of them were from the Orthodox Jewish community. And most of my education was after they put their 11 kids to bed at 7 p.m., they would have the freedom to talk to a young broker like me and explain, hey, you sent me like 7 deals this week. They all suck, but here's why they suck. And coach me through like how to price, how to know how to position a building for the bank on the refi, like how to value a vacant building versus an occupied building. And so those clients were my professors. And a lot of times the struggle with brokers is like, well, how do I get their attention? And it's like, you have to give something for them to educate you. And what I had to offer was the humility of saying, I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'm really good at getting meetings with the people you want to buy buildings from. And I'm capable of earning their trust. And you'll probably buy a good deal off me because I don't really know what I'm doing yet. I was very humble about that, but I'm like, you should meet with me because you're probably going to get something good off me if you just give me a little time. And, you just constantly send them investment offering memorandums and decks and that reciprocal nature, because most buyers will educate you. They know even if they land one deal of 100 that they review, as long as they land one, that relationship is worth it to them. So that's what was in it for them, was a deal flow of, just new opportunities, 90% of which were overpriced or not good, but they like that action. So that's still the easiest way. I tell my brokers, you're only going to learn so much from me in the office. You need to identify the 5 people you're going to have the late night calls with every night, running through deal flow. And those are the professors. They will teach you way more than you'll learn at NYU or Columbia or anything else. These guys are the ones doing the deals. So that was a big key.
I find that the folks that are curious, which is kind of what you're saying, they make it to the top no matter some way, somehow, because they have the passion, the curiosity to spend their free time to listen, to read, to meet with people. So I think that, I'm sure you may or may not realize, but that was probably a big key to your success.
I think the humility is good too, like the vulnerability. Like that's how I kind of did. Like we train our associates, like eventually it's kind of like you. It's kind of similar. We get them on the phone. They're talking to people. They have no idea what they're talking about. They know some keywords, and like that's how we all start. Mm-hmm. And I just tell them, don't worry. Like you don't have to be perfect. Like just if you don't know what you're talking about, ask them. People love to answer questions about their job. People love to talk about their life. Everyone's favorite subject is themselves. So like they're gonna tell you, and they're gonna want to teach you about this. So just don't worry about it. And that's how I kind of did. You BS away through a lot of these meetings, but sometimes I would just. My best clients were the ones where I was like, I don't know. I got this great candidate, and I don't know what they really do or how they do it, but I'm pretty sure like you might want to see them type of thing. And then they coach you like, oh yeah, we need to see this type of background, this type of skill set, and same thing. But there is a big fear that you're going to look like an idiot, and you get over that pretty quickly. And then there's a lot of freedom there.
You read a lot of books, and I think the imposter syndrome, but it's like everybody has it. The CEOs of Fortune 500 companies at their root, they also feel that. Like we're all human. Like aside from maybe Elon Musk, we're all pretty much in a similar baseline of intelligence, and just trying to get by. So knowing that about people and clients in general goes a long way. We just got done with the football season, so the curiosity thing, I'm always like, see these guys making bets on the side, and they know where the player went to school and what their 40-yard dash time was. I'm like, if you just knew that much about your clients and what buildings they own and what they refinanced recently, you would make so much money. Like stop focusing on where this wide receiver went and focus on who owns the building down the street. So if you can apply the fantasy football type of intensity to your career, you will be a multimillionaire. Just be that obsessed with your clients that you are with fantasy football. Pretty simple.
Yeah. I remember when I first got into my world and I wasn't making a lot of money, which you don't do it in our job either. I was like, I need a part-time job. Like I remember I was talking to my mom, like maybe I should bartend or something just to make ends meet. She's like, why don't you spend that extra 20% of the week, focus on your job, and maybe things will happen. And I did. And it was great advice. I'm shocked my mom gave it to me, but it actually worked.
That's amazing.
What's the market like now? Like what's New York City? It's been like up and down, and what are you seeing now? And is it deals harder to get done?
Yeah, so I work for the New York City multifamily team at Marcus Millichap. So we primarily sell apartment buildings or developable land that you can build an apartment building on. When you talk about commercial real estate in New York City, I'll break it down by couple of different food groups. The office category is actually, I feel like, has found the bottom and is bouncing off the bottom as far as demand and pricing. So 4 days a week in the office is back. Jamie Dimon's back. As a company, Marcus Millichap is in the market for a new office lease, and we're trying to be very close to Grand Central. And this is just an anecdotal observation. We thought we had a deal and then got outbid like almost 4 times in a row. And so you're starting to see that push from like 1 block from Grand Central, everything's gone now. 2 blocks from Grand Central, maybe there's a couple things, but there's bidding wars on it. 3 blocks from Grand Central, maybe, but you got to compromise and do Class B instead of Class A. So like that whole office market is, on the leasing side, is heating up again. So I think there's still a tremendous amount of pain, but at least you're starting to find a clearing price for buildings. There's a lot of buyers that will buy any type of office building for $200 to $300 a square foot. So that's coming back into play. On the apartment side, there's a polar, opposite experience. There's the free market, unregulated, new construction type rentals, which the rents are going sky high and continuing to climb, which is bad for tenants, kind of can be good for owners, but it's a function of the regulation that prohibits any type of new supply coming online. So, the free market category is doing relatively well, even despite interest rates being so high and having the valuations turned upside their head. But on the flip side, the majority of who I work with and my clients are the rent-regulated owners, and we've essentially been locked in financial prison since June of 2019 with these disastrous laws that they passed, which if you're out there listening and you want to know why your rent is so high, well, the rent, it's like, let's just use baby formula as an example. If you stopped the production of all baby formula in 2019 and you had the same number of babies being born and people having children, the price in 2024 of the existing baby formula that exists is going to be higher, and it'll be higher in 2025 and then higher in 2026 unless the government allows somebody to produce more baby. So there hasn't been any ability to produce new apartments at scale since June of 2019. And so you have this incredible gridlock under the guise of freeze the rents to win votes that has caused a real polar reaction of a push up in prices of what actually can be renovated. So we are selling buildings on the rent regulated side where you can't raise the revenue at all. Like literally you can't do it at all. It's essentially just frozen. The expenses are frozen. The taxes keep going up, but the revenue is frozen. You're selling buildings. I'm trying to sell them at 50 to 60% less than what they sold for before they passed these laws. So it's very sad because I go to many meetings with people that have been doing this their entire life, and maybe they have 3 or 4 buildings. It's a husband and wife that manage them. They're the mom and pop, like salt of the earth type of people that are managing in the Bronx and Upper Manhattan and Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and they're we're about to present to them what the value is, and you can literally see them holding hands across the table, shaking at what we're about to tell them because they're so scared, and they can't. It's almost like, unlike a stock, you can't sell it overnight. You have to go through this process, and sometimes that process to sell a building can take 9 to 12 months. So that experience is a very painful experience of, oh, we thought we had an accepted offer. Oh, then the buyer retrades down $200,000. And then, oh, we get another buyer. And then the market's just been a steady decline. And it will continue like that until the government wisens up and just changes some of the laws. And that needs to happen sooner than later. So that part of the market is in a death spiral. And it's unfortunately what I sell the most of. On the flip side, if you're trying to make the bet that the prices are extremely low. I mean, we're selling buildings for $100 a square foot, where the condos, if you could just magically make the building condos, would sell for $1,500 a foot. It's selling 70 unit apartment buildings for the same price of a 2-family. It's like, you just look at the physical real estate. You're like, this is 100,000 square foot building selling for $5 million or $4 million. And you have this little brownstone, like a block away, selling for the exact same price. And it's like, what is wrong with this place? So on the buying and opportunity side, if you're somebody that thinks way long ahead and you think that no matter what, eventually they're going to have to change these laws, the prices that you can pick them up at today, you would look like a genius in 5 to 10 years. So it's very negative for who holds the bag now. It could be very much a just once in a generation, similar to office buildings post-COVID, to acquire real estate at such a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to even build these things again. And it's all because of the regulation. So
yeah, we have a lot of clients that was their business plan, and then all of a sudden their business plan was gone. And so it's like, yeah, it's been tough.
What do you do? Keep telling people to hold out, and then a year later the price is lower. I'm like, maybe I should just shut up and stop giving people hope. It's like hope is a hard thing to kill. I would have thought they would have changed the laws by now because it's like common sense. But we're 6 years into it, and it still there. This happened before when the Bronx is burning and people just, before there's cameras everywhere, they vacate the buildings and light them on fire because the insurance proceeds was their only way to monetize property. And we're literally, history is repeating itself. And it's like the same thing that predated the Bronx's burning was the same type of crazy over the top rent control. And I think that the city is going to have a fiscal crisis because I can just tell you anecdotally, like people are stopping paying their mortgages and stop paying the property taxes at scale more and more every month because they're out of their reserves. They can't keep investing in these buildings that it's like no rational person would just take all their money from their bank account and start a bonfire in the backyard. I mean, that's the equivalent of there's no return on it. It's just basically like hemorrhaging whatever you have. So that part of the market is challenging. I'm hoping that, if we're on the precipice of a law change and, we'll have found the bottom. But, it's just, everything that when you push in one direction, it comes out the other side. So rents are really high because there's no supply being created in New York City.
One of the things we hear a lot from people is, they're working for a big company and they want to go out and start their own thing. And now feels like maybe it's a decent time to buy. Do you have any advice for entrepreneurs who might want to be kind of starting their own thing right now and where to start?
It's a great question. High level, you're buying in a high interest rate environment, which we are currently in, and you're buying into the pain of New York City commercial real estate and apartment buildings. Like from a macro perspective, this does seem like an incredible opportunity, even if you don't completely know what you're doing and have background, to take your shot, throw a dart at the board, because even if just interest rates go down, the values will go up. We're selling properties at 6 to 7% cap rates, which is kind of a 6 to 7% yield in place. And that historically, I mean, some of Manhattan real estate would sell for 3-4%. So when interest rates go down, you kind of will look like a genius and just probably immediately make money. But my advice would be, don't think that this is a stock. This is a job. It is heavy human, related. There's a friction. It's not just something you can buy and put on the side. And if you're going to buy a building today, you're going to want to know every nook and cranny and have a really good property management company, educate yourself on all the laws. We have a lot of acronyms, a lot of agencies, and you got to keep up with all that stuff. But I do think the juice might be worth the squeeze. I would just caution, we do have some clients that raise money, and maybe it's a 25-year-old that has some of their family money and wants to buy an apartment building, but then they're like, wait, this is a lot more work than
you're buying yourself a job.
Yeah, it's heavy management intensive. It can be really worthwhile. But no, I do think this is a really good time. I think you just like anything, you got to pick your spots. But I would say, like, on the whole of it, everything I sell in 2025 will be resold for a profit in a lower interest rate environment. you don't really need to even execute a business plan right now. You just need to buy right. And then if interest rates go down, you're going to make money. So that's a really interesting dynamic that no one really sees now because interest rates haven't come down yet. But as soon as they start coming down, the fear of missing out will come back in New York City and all the buyers rush back in. Like everything's a herd. The herd will follow. They just haven't decided to run in the direction of buying yet. They're waiting for interest rates to start coming down. But if they do, that herd is going to start gobbling these things up again. And by that time, if you're out there and you're the new entrepreneur that's trying to get your foot in the door and to get Shaun Riney to call you back, it'll be harder to get our attention because now all the professionals and the sharks at scale you're competing with. And why would we chances on you have one building and it's a single family home? Like that's kind of how that would be the opportunity.
That's a good sell. I like that.
Get in.
We saw you list batteries included as one of your firm's core values. What does that mean?
I mean, this is a 6-day-a-week high energy job, right? I mean, you guys are in this line of work too. If you're going to sound monotone and not be optimistic about, I just told you a lot of negative things, but I probably said it in a way that was kind of like uplifting. You're like, wait, he's just telling me the world's ending, but he's also telling me this might be the greatest opportunity at the planet.
I want to buy right now. Let's go.
Go. So you have to be able to like tell the truth, but also tell the optimistic way things can go. And, unlike a salary job, I used to make a comment, salary people bore me. I eat what I kill every day. I'm 1099. I only know 1099. I only employ 1099 for the most part. So you got to come with energy every single day. And I think that's really easy to sustain for the first year, or it's really easy to sustain when things are going your way. It's really hard to say, I'm going to have batteries included for 17 years, 6 days a week. And that's just going to be the identity I take of myself. Because I don't get paid by just sitting around and making 2 calls to my friends. I'm not, I will literally have 0. So, batteries included for somebody that's in sales that needs to make a lot of outbound calls and prospecting and put themselves into awkward positions and uncomfy situations all the time, I think is just one of the key hallmarks. I've never seen anybody said alternatively be successful in commercial real estate brokerage with low energy.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think I love the batteries included. Chris and I were talking, I feel like that might be a mantra that we take on for our company as well. It's just, it sums it up so beautifully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Lisa's an example. She exemplifies that too. She's always on go. She lives in Scarsdale. She's in the city. She's got breakfast, first breakfast, second breakfast, lunches, dinners. It's just nonstop.
I know the price of eggs is killing me. Now the price of breakfast is like, don't order the eggs.
Just pass rent laws against the eggs. Just freeze the price of eggs, and no one can make money off eggs anymore. Then the existing eggs will be even more.
Crazy world we live in. Well, another thing we saw that you said was hell on earth would be meeting the person you could have become. And I feel like that is a really powerful statement. I assume that's one of the things that motivates and drives you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. I haven't, thought about that particular line. So I'm glad you kind of refreshed it in my memory. But yeah, I mean, those rocking chair moments of life, if you can look back and be, proud of everything you've done, but on the flip side, put yourself in a state where that would be the worst thing, is to be in those rocking chair moments and be like, you know what, I didn't give it my all in my relationship with my wife or in my relationship with my kids, or, forget career, but I didn't push it to the max, and I only had this one life to live here. So we don't get, we only get one chance at this. So for me, that mostly is a lot of stuff outside of work because, I have an 8-month-old now. Like I can, there's a balancing act of everything. But you got to challenge yourself. Very similar. Like I saw something recently with Tom Brady. He was like, I never worried about anybody else. I just had to look in the mirror every day. And like, if I wasn't proud of myself that I pushed it to the absolute max, then I couldn't sleep at night. But it had nothing to do with outpacing a different quarterback, whatever. He had this internal, just like, I have to be the best version of myself. And when I'm not, I literally can't sleep. and that's why he's the greatest of all time. So I think it's just similar type of kind of attitude for that. Glad you brought that up, though. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, what do you like to do outside of work? I mean, I assume you bring this energy to other things, right? Like, I mean, you just have the new child, right? But prior to that, so you're going to be wrapped up in that for a while. So like prior to that, what were your interests that kind of kept you got to be some sort of balance, right?
For sure. No, when I'm constantly evaluating personal real estate investments. On the side hustle side right now, I have 2 vacation homes in Montauk, New York, in the Hamptons, and that's my happy place. I'm currently going through a basically new construction build on a single family rental out there, and I'm learning a lot. I'm definitely paying for some of my education, over budget. It's longer. I've had to switch contractors. I've had to negotiate many different things. And right now at night, I'm YouTubing, how to build a staircase, how to, stucco a facade, because I'm trying to understand these things as we build them in a way that I can learn the lingo a little bit, better and ultimately improve on the next house that we do. So that creative outlet right now on the business side is building these houses and just, really getting a taste for like what things really cost and how to negotiate and kind of deal with general contractors. Because building a house, I mean, that takes a community. I don't know if you've had the experience of it, but there are so many hands that touch a house from the beginning to the end. And it really kind of similar to like raising a child. It takes a village. So I'm finding that community on site very uplifting. There's nothing better than seeing progress. When you see progress, then you get the invoice and you're like, oh, progress costs money. Dang it. But that is a hell of a lot of fun. I love to cycle. Cycling is kind of, I used to be a big runner, and I was like, wait, I can even get more distance and see more things on a cycling bike. So do a lot of that. But I just love anything that's outdoor related. Hiking is my happy place. Just having a very simple destination of getting to point B, but being in motion the entire time is kind of a little bit easier for me to meditate on a hike than it is sitting still. But same kind of concept.
Yeah, there's walking meditation, man. That's something.
Yeah.
Well, you seem really, you're happy. Speaking of happy places, we're about to send you to a very unhappy place because you have just entered the hot seat.
Oh! But don't worry, it starts off easy. It starts off with an easy question. Do you have a book or podcast recommendation?
Well, I would highly recommend you listen to this podcast. I did take a couple episodes, and this has been very informative. The book I have everybody read, and I need to read probably for the 17th time, is The One Thing by Jay Keller. And one of the main takeaways in that, it was similar to what I started with, you can't fail at what you don't quit at, was just 4 hours a day of anything, and you will become a master at it. And pick your one thing and really just at least spend 4 hours a day on that one thing. And no matter what, you will be a master at it. Like, I don't know how to build a table, but I'm sure if I spent 4 hours a day, eventually you consider me a master craftsman and carpenter at building tables. And so, part of that with the brokers is just don't dabble. Like, dabblers never make it. Like, commit to something. Get in the right vehicle, but once you're in the right vehicle, just drive that sucker and like really try not to look left and right and just look forward. So The One Thing by Jay Keller, I believe is the author's name, was the book, one of the books that
I think I read that. I read that. I used to be part of this like mind, what are they called? Like those masters groups for people with like entrepreneur type thing. I think that was what is your most memorable deal?
The first one, 1102 Eastern Parkway, 16 unit in Crown Heights. My first opportunity for a check, and I don't go to closings very much anymore, partly because I'm still scarred by that first one. So they saw this 21-year-old kid there to collect his commission check. It was 2009. Everything was a mess. The world had ended very, few months before with Lehman Brothers crashing. And this attorney picked on me, and they did successfully cut my fee at the closing table. Like here I am, like just broke as a joke. I think our total commission was like $78,000. And of course, there's always discrepancies in the closing statement, the water charges and, something. So when the broker's there, the attorneys are like, well, let's just take it out of the broker's fee. And I'm just like pumping it out of my chest. Like, I don't know. This is one of those moments when I'm trying to pretend like I know what I'm doing. So I'll never forget the heart palpitations of that moment. And I just out of a panic, like just agreed. And then I got back to my manager's office. Like, you didn't even call me. I was like, I just wanted to close. I just needed one thing on my track record. So that was probably the most memorable. I guess you'll never forget your first. But as far as new stuff, I always tell everybody, you're only as good as your last deal. So I'm always 2 deals away from being happy. I'm currently miserable, guys, but if I get 2 more deals in contract, like I'm going to be happy for about 5 minutes, and then I'll be miserable until I get those next 2 deals again. So it's, you gotta live in the state of, the clients don't really care what you did 3 years ago. They care about what you're going to do for them on this new address. But yeah, I don't think anybody ever forgets anything, but their purse is the most important.
Yeah, there's always got to be a fire there, like under your ass, right? Just kind of, that's
Batteries
part
included.
part of the driving. Yeah, we were talking to somebody the other day. It was working with us. Now I'm going to feel a lot of pressure. I'm like, now you're going to feel a lot of pressure? Like, you should feel a lot of pressure like the minute you sit down in the seat. Like, that's how you're going to, there's got to be pressure coming internally, not just from externally. So.
And speaking of that, I assume you've probably hired a fair amount of people in your time. What do you look for when you hire someone?
I look for this might be a little bit unorthodox, but I look for, they have to be humility, batteries included, grits. They have to be willing to do everything. But I also kind of am looking for somebody with not a chip on their shoulder, but like something to prove. And so this is kind of like a deeper question, but I always ask, people like, whose attention, this is kind of like from a Tony Robbins, just mind warp stuff, but it's, who's of your mother and father, whose love and affection did you crave the most growing up? And if you can get somebody to answer that question, and then you can get them to understand why, it says a lot about them. Because in my case, like I mentioned to you, like the idea of owing my father money after everything that he has done for me was just not an option. So like, if I was mentoring Shaun Riney, no one asked me that question at an interview. But if I was Shaun Riney's mentor, I could remind Shaun Riney along the way of his journey, hey, like, remember what we're doing here. Like, we're not going to fail because we're not going to let him down. And like, I would tap into that vein. So I kind of want to know what's going to make somebody tick and what they're really doing it for. And if they don't have a perfect answer, like making money is not really the whole point, but like, if they have if they have a better answer for that, and I can get to the real heart of it, and you usually don't get it by just asking somebody the first time. You're like, you got to probe a little bit. And I also usually ask somebody what their greatest disappointment or when they experience shame the most or rejection the most is really the better way to put it. And we all go through that. Many times it's usually in a relationship or a breakup. And what I want to do in that moment is just remind them of what they felt like, because they're going to experience that again. And when they go back to that place, they need to know that it's a safe place to just say, hey, I'm in that period, because the clients are going to reject them the same way that first girl in high school did. And it'll kick up all those emotions of, am I good enough? And once those emotions of, am I good enough, come back, you can start to get really mangled in your head, especially when you're not getting a salary and you're on all commission. So I just try to like explain, like, that feeling is going to come up again. When it does come up again, come into my office. And so I can just give you a reset right at that moment versus you spinning off your own access for 3 months and me not noticing, and then you're out of the business. Because those clients will, you're going to feel that rejection again because you don't know what you're doing. And like, people are going to pick up on that, and they're going to give you a little bit of a window, and then they're going to tell you you're an idiot. And then, there's going to be a lot of that in the first 2 years of getting your teeth kicked in. And so I want to set the stage and really probe so that mostly when somebody needs a reset, they kind of know like it's expected. It's like, he told me that this is going to happen. This is not new or novel. It's not something that's just happening to me. It's literally what happens to everybody. And he told me this is going to happen. So that's what I try to really, if I can't get through on that level in the first couple interviews with somebody, I probably won't really be able to coach them the right way. And it does take a little longer, but I found that very impactful.
Those are great questions. I love them. I think we found our more
likewise,
interview questions for us.
Can't answer it. I'm like, well, how am I ever going to build a 20-year career with you when you can't tell me, that period of time? And I share with them back. So that's the other thing. Like I will explain to them what my deepest, fear and shame and where I felt the lowest was. And so if we can have that relationship, then we have a real thing going. But if you can't, if you're just like, I don't know why you're asking me that, man. I just want to make money and I want to make money, period. I don't know if I'm going to have a 20-year career with that person. And I'm only interested in the long term. Like, that's my biggest gripe is we will train somebody and then they run off, and that's, part of building a championship team. But I don't make any money off of a 3 or 5 year relationship. Everything I've mentored a lot of people that have been with me since the very beginning, and those are the ones that, we've really built lives and careers together. So.
Right. You mentioned mentors, and you mentioned your father. What other mentors have you had throughout your career?
I would say I no longer work with him. He's on the principal side of just buying properties now. But the leader of our team originally, Peter Vondere, is one of the other mentors in life. He's a father of 4 boys, and he just has a way about him of managing all the crises of the day. And I think maybe it stemmed from having 4 kids, which I now realize. And then also, when you got your commercial real estate guys barking at you, it's kind of like you're prepared for it when you have 4 kids, because you're like, all right, this is like just kitties, you're at the clients are really the non-important stuff. But just a completely humble and high integrity to, kind of doing what you say. One of the things that I always took away from him is, inevitably we fail on a lot of assignments, and he was always a big proponent of fail with grace. And failing with grace means that even if you're not going to be successful, don't stop talking to the client. Tell them what's going on. Like, never, the silence is the awkwardness. And we're going to retire a lot of listings. We're going to not hit the prices. There's going to be stuff that fails, and we're going to have our agreement expire, and we're going to fail. But if you fail with grace and you're doing that with honor, those people will come back and rehire you a year later. But if you just stop talking to them and light switch them and ghost them, or try to be too aggressive with them, or just basically put your interests in front of theirs, they won't come back to you. And they will also tell 5 of their friends that, this is just a normal guy. So we fail so much in our business that failing with grace was just kind of like something that he embodied. And it is kind of really hard to put into practice when you're like, how do I even communicate that? How do I keep sending marketing updates when I know like we're not going to get there? It takes energy and effort, but it makes the client feel good because at least it tells them what's going on. Like, we've all had personal relationships with a contractor or anybody. It's like when there's just silence and there's just nothing, you start to have all the perverted thoughts in your brain. So it's like, don't do that to other people. Like, you don't like when that happens to you. Like, try to fight that urge to do nothing and actually go out of your way and just tell the truth. And, that was a big part of our recurring business, because I always thought that if we failed, they would never come back to us. But in reality, if you fail with grace, they almost always come back to you and give you another crack at the bat. I'm sure
That's
you
awesome,
find
man.
that.
Yeah, we fail a lot too. Yeah, we go for a pitch, and like we always kind of execute. It's a different kind of model. Like, but there's a lot of pitching and pitching and pitching and pitching, and like you don't get the assignment. And so, you just have to be gracious about it and be like, and like be helpful even sometimes, because then a lot of times the first people they hire will fail, then they come back to you.
Exactly. They won't, and they don't blame you for it as long as you kind of told them what they needed to know when they made that hire the first time. They're not going to blame you if that hire didn't work out, because you told them everything. You didn't conceal something, and they're going to, give it another crack. There's a lot of corollaries in that business. The other thing that Peter always just says, macro patience, micro speed. So, when you think about a longevity of a career, you have to be patient with people, fail with grace, and not be, trying to bludgeon them with just accepting an offer. But on a day-to-day basis, you need to be acting with like micro speed. Like if something can get done today, do not wait till tomorrow. Do it today. Then stepping back, you need to realize that the business will take 3 to 10 years to really develop. But that doesn't mean that you can take that slow approach on the day-to-day execution of all the small tasks. So it was macro patience, micro speed every single day. And like that really made a lot of sense to me.
That's awesome, man. I always tell people, like, I do 1,000 things a day. If I knew which 3 were going to be the effective ones, I would just do them and take a nap. But like, I never know. So.
Exactly. You just got to throw it on the wall and see what sticks. Like we're doing right
Shaun,
now.
Shaun, it was a great podcast. I could see why you're successful. I'd love to meet you in person sometime in New York. And thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate the time.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Resume, a Jackson Lucas podcast where we take a deep dive into the career journeys of some of the top minds in real estate and equip you with the knowledge to move forward in your path towards the success you've envisioned. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Beyond the Resume. We're grateful for your support. All episodes of Beyond the Resume are brought to you by Jackson Lucas, building inclusive and diverse businesses through talent acquisition. Visit us at jacksonlucas.com.